Hello and welcome to yet another edition of the Horn of Africa TV Conversations. With me, as always, is my good friend and comrade, Professor Mohamed Hassan. It's been a while, Mohamed Hassan. Today is Monday, February 1st, 2021. We haven't had our regular conversations here on our Horn of Africa TV since the advent of the new year. So how are you? It's good to see you again.
Thank you, Comrade Elias. I'm okay. Happy New Year. I'm alive and kicking, and my health is okay. I hope yours. 2021 will be the year which will bring a lot of hope and fruitful work for the whole Horn of Africa team. And we wish for the whole people of the Horn of Africa, it will be the year of peace and tranquility and cooperation. And I thank you very much.
Inshallah, we hope so too. It's good, as always, to have this frank discussion and analysis with you on the situation in the Horn of Africa, especially in our region, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Sudan, Somalia, Djibouti, and South Sudan, perhaps Kenya too. Though we haven't had you and I our regular weekly conversations here on Horn of Africa TV, you have had one in Arabic with Ustaz Hamdan and another one that you did in Amharic. So you've been busy. Also, I understand you were also busy on the Eritrean PAL Talk discussion room, Eritrean Vision, the past 2 weeks. How has the discussion been? Give us a little sense of what your discussion was about.
It was organized by young Eritreans living in diaspora. Some of them, a good number of them, born and brought up in Ethiopia, who spoke very good Amharic.
So the discussion was in Amharic, or was it in Tigrinya, or Arabic, or English, or multilingual?
You could say for almost more than 90% is Amharic. And then in between, sometimes questions is asked in Tigrinya. Sometimes some people made a comment in Arabic, but it is in Amharic, you could say, the discussion. There is a lot of Eritreans who spoke eloquent Amharic, even better than me. And we had a very long discussion about the region, the new Horn of Africa. They were asking what will happen, how about the stability of Ethiopia, the fear of that Ethiopia can be stable or not, the vision of Dr. Abiy, the vision also of the new Horn of Africa, what does it mean? Did the other forces who doesn't like this vision, can they let us to start? Because Eritrea had always affirmed that it is self-reliance is very important, and regional good neighborhood must be encouraged. They were asking me about all this and some details. Why is Turkish influence are expanding in the region, particularly Somalia? What's happening in Djibouti? How is the situation on the ground in Ethiopia? And
yes.
All this in details we had.
It was, I joined towards the end, the one of last Saturday, this past weekend. And it went on for almost 4 hours. So it must have been a very engaging discussion. And many people towards the end, after you left, were really grateful for your time and for taking the time to explain in depth and your analysis. So I believe also the Ethiopian Herald must have picked up on this conversation from the previous week, not this one, but a week ago, because it published an article about your discussion, the Ethiopian Herald newspaper. Huh?
Indeed.
It is in English.
Yes, the idea is we have to engage a discussion with our young people on the idea of the new Horn of Africa. After the demise of Woyane, how we are going to reorganize our region and how we can develop our relationship among ourselves. And
briefly explain to our viewers then who are not participant in that lengthy Paltalk discussion, what do we mean when we say the new Horn of Africa, and what is our vision for the new Horn of Africa?
The new Horn of Africa is an idea existed for almost 30, 35 years ago, or even more. 40 years, you could say. The understanding, the idea developed with the Eritrean Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
That have to be very clear. The Eritrean Revolution sees the region and the Eritrean Revolution in 3 steps. The first, of course, on the ground, that it is the organization which is leading that revolution, the EPLF, understand that it is the unnecessary false consciousness which have been created in Eritrea by different external colonial forces must be broken down, and we have to establish a unity of Eritrean people as one man and one woman.
What do you say the EPLF for viewers, for example, in Ethiopia? Many younger generation people only know it through its name in Arabic, Sha'biya. But when they say Sha'biya, what are they talking about? What is the EPLF? Explain in at length.
The understanding the word of Sha'biya, it is a negative word, which
a derogatory term, they think.
Derogatory term used by the military regime in its campaign, and it is propaganda. First of all, to connect 2 things. One is that Sha'biya is an Arabic word, but they don't explain what does it mean. It means is the popular or forces.
It comes from the full name of the organization, which is in Arabic what?
In Arabic is
الجبهة الشعبية لتحرير
Eritrea.
Which in English means?
The EPLF, Eritrean People's Liberation Front.
Liberation Front.
Yes, so it is that Sha'biya, which is in Arabic means popular.
People's or popular.
People's popular.
በአማርኛ ህዝባዊ
ማለት ነው yeah. Yes, and that it was given a negative connotation, as if it is that because the whole struggle of Eritrean people was connected as an expansionist Arab policies who are destabilizing Ethiopia. That is the nature of the propaganda of the military regime, and even in the past under the emperor. So to delegitimize the Eritrean cause, and then at the same time to put sand on the eyes of Ethiopian people, not to have a solidarity with the Eritrean people, understand the Eritrean people's history, and so on and so on. So it is a package of propaganda, falsification of history, and so on connected to that. So,
okay, so continue then to the New Horn of Africa vision of the EPLF.
The EPLF's vision from the beginning is there is no peoples-to-people contradiction. That is a major understanding and thinking of the Eritrean Revolution and the EPLF's vision. Of course, the ruling classes in Ethiopia always utilize divide and rule, false consciousness, campaign and counter campaign in their favor, and so on, that the Ethiopian people cannot understand or not to understand the democratic question of the Eritrean people for the right of self-determination. And the right of determination, it can only be applicable through a referendum that the Eritrean people have to decide whether they want to be part of Ethiopia or federation with Ethiopia or autonomy or independence. The EPLF only promotes the struggle of Eritrean people, but it doesn't impose us. That is one concept.
So in a sense, then, the EPLF had an internationalist aspect to its struggle, understanding that the end goal of the Eritrean revolution is not merely the independence of Eritrea, but also a wider regional change for democratic
Indeed.
change in the Horn of Africa, in Ethiopia in particular, but all over the region.
The understanding is that it is the EPLF understanding and analysis is that it is the ruling class, the minority ruling class who are ruling Ethiopia. They are agents of external forces. Agents in a way that it is to destabilize the region, to destabilize Ethiopia, to create an antagonism among the peoples in the region, and they fulfill an agenda of external force which is very far away from the region. So one of the process is that the overthrow of these regimes. But after the overthrow of this regime, that the relationship among the people, which had always existed historically, will turn into its normal historical process. In that way, that the new Horn of Africa, which we call it new now, it was that concept that it is the people of Horn of Africa, they will work together shoulder to shoulder, they can protect each other, they can develop their economy. In fact, they will be independent from the clutch of the imperialism, which is a logical analysis. It is a two-step revolution in a way that it is, yes, the Eritrean people must have the right of self-determination on the basis of democratic referendum. The second is that once Eritrea got independent and the region doesn't change, even if Eritrea militarily, that it wins against the military regime and so on, if the military regime continue having the power in Ethiopia, they can rearm, they can be supported by imperialist forces, and they can wage again a war. Therefore, it is vital the overthrow of the regime in Addis Ababa and the establishment of a democratic state in Ethiopia, which is accepted by all Ethiopian people. On the basis of that, the regional or the new Horn of Africa concept can develop. So it is three layers of process that the EPLF envisaged in its program, in its struggle, and in its propaganda. The problem is...
Where could our viewers, for instance, find a document, a concrete document of the EPLF that elaborates on this vision and the EPLF's relationship with Ethiopian democratic struggles?
The best documents are several. One of the best is that the Second Congress of the EPLF, in details, more than 130 pages, in details explains. For those people who really want, they can write me and I can send them these documents to read. In fact, it is not to read. It is a discussion group they can create and analyze them. It is, for the moment, in order to make things very clear and to understand also all forces from the 60s, and you could say on from the student movement, later on the political parties who have come out, like the Old Socialist Party of Ethiopia, the Meson, the EPRP, all others within Ethiopia, and including the EPLF. When you read this document, you could see where was the differences, where was the strength of EPLF, what was the vision of EPLF to the people of Eritrea, first of all, and then to the region. So in fact, the EPLF have seen that the ruling class in Ethiopia is not an organic ruling class. It's an agent, it is a foreign organ on the Horn of Africa's body. And this
a proxy of foreign imperialistic powers, huh?
Indeed, which is correct.
Or a neo-colonial state. Then.
A neo-colonial state, which is in service of its masters. And that was correct. We have seen it for the last 60, 70 years of the history of that country. And we have lost an ample trillions of hours where our people can work together, shoulder to shoulder, improve the life of the majority of the people of Ethiopia and the Horn of Africa, Eritrea, and so on. That is why.
So, what is the second document? You said the first is the EPLF's.
Yes. The second is very important to understand, which have a multiple layer understanding. One can read it. First of all, the view of Eritrea, the EPLF, about the independence of Eritrea and what kind of society they wanted to build, and their relationship with the democratic Ethiopia or with the democratic forces, and how they see the forces in Ethiopia, their shortcoming and their strength. And this was published as a sort of a paper of a debate, and it was issued in 1985 May by a journal, the theoretical journal of the EPLF called Adulis, which is a very big document, which was very vital now. In fact, by that moment, the Wayane was advised by the EPLF, the line you are following is wrong, it is a disaster, you will not succeed on this, you will only bring a Balkanization and finally your demise. But they were not able to understand because of narrow nationalist, narrow fascist, chauvinist, or clerical or parochial mentality of the TPLF. And history have proved it that it is now, after 45 years, is disappeared. This is the
indeed. So we will put this these two documents for our viewers. A link will be provided in the description section so that they can access and read and understand the EPLF's long-standing vision on the New Horn of Africa, in particular the relationship between Eritrea and Ethiopia.
The other thing which is not clear to the Ethiopian people, who are non-Tigrayan speakers, including the Tigrinya speakers of Tigray, is that the relationship between the EPLF and the TPLF. This became a myth, and TPLF wanted to be a myth. For example, in one of the thinking, the TPLF propaganda to mobilize it is peasantry and it is the population, they blamed the EPLF in the time of the famine in 1984, that EPLF didn't give an access or closed the access between Sudan and the Gash Barka and down to Tigray, and so on. They don't explain that. To understand is the third important document was published by Eritrea Profile in 2007, June, by 11 chapter, clearly shows that it is the relationship. Is it a strategical relationship? It was a tactical relationship. What was the understanding of the EPLF toward the TPLF? And so on. This is also fundamental because in Ethiopia, there is a myth, not only a myth, a cloud, a dark cloud, which doesn't, TPLF ruled Ethiopia until it is demise through ignorance. And they have put in a very dark cloud on the Ethiopian mind, not to see the real contradictions between the TPLF and the EPLF. And this document also, we will also put it, that people, journalists in Ethiopia can read it, and so on, like now these people of Herald, Ethiopian Herald, it shows that they are hungry, they are willing to learn, because we have to, now is the time that the educated class, the journalists, the intelligentsia, and so on, to read the proper documents in order to compare. Of course, one of the other documents of TPLF, we have to also publish it there. Two documents of TPLF will be important as educating mechanism, not because they are good documents, but to show the nature of this organization. One is that in Amharic, when they published in 1987 on the Oromo questions and their analysis about the Oromo. Finally, they say Oromo people have been oppressed for a very long time, and so on, but we will be the boss of them. We will liberate them, and we will sit at the top, and we will explode them. This is to make it very simple way of explaining.
Very short. Well, this is a document in which they say there are no progressive forces leading the Oromo struggle. Therefore, we have to create a progressive organization. And out of this came out the OPDO then.
OPDO, exactly. That also in Amharic we have to put it. The second is that it is The answer of
just as a peripheral question here, are you saying then that the TPLF in the 1980s viewed the OLF as not a legitimate representative force leading the Oromo struggle?
And it says clearly that it is the Oromo, despite of severely oppressed, lacked a revolutionary leadership and revolutionary organization. That's why the Oromo coalition went into astray. The communist forces of Tigray, and with Oromo communist forces together, we will liberate and solve the Oromo question. It says the document itself. So we will also publish that. We will put it for people, our young Oromo who are living outside and inside the country. They can read it from the horse's mouth, from the mouth of the horse, that TPLF is gone. But this is the thinking of TPLF. It is written in Amharic. It is called Yetiglachen Tiri, an appeal of our struggle. The other document is TPLF's answer to 1985 Adulis EPLF document, which it says our differences with the title itself, it says our difference with EPLF. So this we will put it in the Horn of Africa's line, that people, they can download it and they can read it themselves and they can participate a debate with us, and we can discuss to rebuild the new Horn of Africa's vision, which the Horn of Africa television and the members of the Horn of Africa envisage.
Very good. So now, fast forward to the present and the demise of the TPLF. We witness currently in the Western mainstream media, so-called the corporate media, and some of their experts and analysts, a lot of wolf crying or scapegoating, shifting the blame. Why is this outcry and outrage at the demise of this organization, which everybody almost in Ethiopia and the region agrees is a criminal organization that has been guilty of genocide, of massive atrocities, of crimes against humanity that it committed? I mean, the organization TPLF itself, and while it was in power in Ethiopia from 1991 up to 2018, as it ruled Ethiopia for 27 years, it committed brutal crimes against the peoples. But at that time, nobody said anything against it. But now, when its demise came about, we are hearing all kinds of outcries. How do you explain this?
For the external forces, and particularly for Western forces, specific United States, Great Britain, and France, United States, since the coming of Clinton to power in United States, they have developed an idea which is called that it is, we have, like the Roman Empire, we have to control the world through the anchor states. And Ethiopia was nominated, and TPLF was nominated as the anchor state of the region. That with less cost, but by supporting this puppet regime, you can control indirectly the whole region. You don't have to send
the entire Eastern Africa region, Horn of Africa, and whatever.
Yes, yes. So the demise of the first, of course, this theory by itself, it had collapsed and it didn't work on the ground by itself. But secondly, is that it is said the demise of the TPLF brought a vacuum, and it brought a vacuum in their understanding that the region is going out of their hand, and the region is going to be replaced with the view Eritrea and other Ethiopians who view the new Horn of Africa, a new relationship, a new basis, and so on. And this have frightened them. And of course, their agent, the major agent, which have been appointed as the anchor state, as the leading force, which they have pumped it with money and so on, decorated it and parafumed it and so on as a very strong army, the strongest army in the Horn of Africa. They can go everywhere and they can solve the problem for them. It melted in 2 weeks' time in Tigray. At first, it was chased away from Ethiopia by popular revolt, and then it waged war against the Ethiopian troops who have been stationed for 22 years. One of the most important, defending the Ethiopian border, defending the people of Tigray. They attacked that troops and killed a lot of them. And
this happened. What they called the preemptive attack on November 4 of the past year, 2020.
Indeed.
What was the rationale for this attack, if I may ask?
A good question, Comrade Elias. When the TPLF suddenly, or after it was defeated and chased away from Addis Ababa, and it went to Tigray, their analysis, I think, and the way they understood, for them it was long march in reverse. Long march in reverse in the sense that
they retreated to their home base of Tigray to regroup, strengthen themselves, and then what?
Indeed. And then to make an offensive and take over the power. So
back to Addis Ababa again.
Back to Addis Ababa again. That was their understanding.
That would be a double long march. Retreat to Tigray, which is 800 kilometers from Addis Ababa.
And then come back.
They come back again.
Indeed. So to do that, once they went to Tigray.
But how would they come back to power again? I mean, they were totally discredited in Ethiopia, hated by everybody.
Indeed.
What was their plan to return to power in Addis Ababa?
What they did is that once they came back to Tigray, they established committees, according to the Attorney General of Ethiopia of recent reporting. For example, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Siyum Masfin, he became a chairman of pensioners of TPLF fighters. He organized
the old guard who are supposedly retired.
The retired one. So
even they brought here those who were kicked out during the 2000 schism by Meles Zenawi, people like C.A. Abraha and the Tzadkans and Jobbe and what have you.
Yes. So to regroup, they made a committee of finance and so on. Then these different committees, they work in a centralized way. They created a destabilization in 6 regions, training and so on, money and so on and so on. All the
in 6 kilils of Ethiopia.
Ethiopia.
Can we name these 6 regions?
Afar, according to Afar, Benishungul, Ara, Gambela, Addis Ababa, and
Oromia.
And
Oromia, of course.
Oromia.
How about the Somali region? Was it part of the targeted group?
They didn't reach there yet. Their understanding is that Somali region later on will come for it, but these are the one who, if we can encircle Prime Minister Abiy by inciting in this region, by destabilizing this region, and so on, then easily the downfall of the Prime Minister will be successful and will take over the power. Then we will deal with the Somalis and the Eritreans in another way, according to their understanding.
So essentially they were unleashing chaos, instability, mayhem, assassinations all over these 6 regions then.
All. Intelligence gathering, using different intelligence forces, the intelligence forces, and the one who was leading the intelligence of Ethiopia, Getachew Asafa, he himself, he reorganized the intelligence as a process of destabilization, that it is training, sabotage elements, and so on, try to infiltrate, create a lot of cells, and so on. This is the intelligence. Then it is via that also some of the army people who are also training, bringing people from Gambela, bringing people from Benishungul, from Oromia, from Afar and so on, train them and redeploy them in their own regions to destabilize the region. Economic sabotage also. They also have that strategy by using elements through the bank, through this and so on. All this organized thinking. So their purpose was, the whole program is the strategy of chaos. We withdrew, we create a chaos, and once there's chaos everywhere and the civilian killing and so on, that the people will get fed up of the change and they can turn and they will say TPLF era was better, there is peace in the country, and so on and so on, and that even their friends will ask them to intervene as a peacekeeping force to go back to Addis to stabilize Ethiopia. There will be a genocide and so on. The Nobel winner prime minister had failed. He is not able. He is not strong, and so on and so on. That is the way they wanted to.
Already, by the way, in many Western media outlets, these kinds of allegations of campaigns of negativity against the prime minister were ongoing for the past almost 2 years. Indeed. Trying to portray him as unable to govern Ethiopia, as the situation deteriorating, Ethiopia is becoming a failed state, ethnic conflicts all over. They were almost literally begging for the return of the TPLF. Of course, they didn't directly say that, but that's what they were insinuating in their propaganda, these Western medias.
Yes, but they didn't understood the thinking of the prime minister and what he did. The prime minister have killed the backbone of the TPLF by moving only one leg, one step ahead of them. And this is, first, he made peace with Eritrea. This annoyed a lot of people.
That was a major blow, of course, to the TPLF.
A major blow for a lot of people, because he's a brave man to a certain extent, you could say. It is to dare such kind of a step, you must be psychologically very strong. So he went and...
Please explain why it was a major blow to the TPLF. Why was peace with Eritrea to the TPLF anathema, so to speak?
First of all, it is the TPLF never expected that the TPLF's program, even after they moved out from Addis Ababa to the region, they wanted also gradually to encircle the prime minister in Addis Ababa, control his office, like the previous prime minister, Haile Mariam Desalegn. But this young prime minister was much clever. The first thing he did, he didn't bring his families to the palace. He said, remain there, because what they wanted is that to say, this is the office, we have the key, we open for you at 9 o'clock the office, you come and you sit here, and you leave at 5 o'clock, and we close it. And slowly encircle him.
Essentially hold him as a palace hostage.
Palace hostage. But he was clever from that. So in his move, what he did is that two things simultaneously he did, which broke the back of the TPLF. One, he abolished the EPLF. EPLF, it's a fake, doesn't exist, and it's abolished.
You called the EPRDF as this
the Bajaj.
Three-wheeled vehicle called the Bajaj in Ethiopia.
Yes. So the driver, he was chased away, but the Bajaj was parked. And Dr. Abiy said, I don't like the Bajaj. In fact, I like a nice car. He removed the Bajaj and bought a new car. And he said, at least this is a healthy one. It have airbag, it have everything in the car. So I will start a new party, which is later on through his book and so on, Bilsagana. This destroyed TPLF. And that is what the testimony of the wizard of TPLF, of Abu Sabhat, he said, we were dead when TPLF was abolished. And
when he was recently captured and brought to Addis Ababa to face justice.
a correct statement. And we and you, when we made one time an analysis on Ethiopia and so on, that one of the steps Dr. Abiy he took, that it is much.
So you're saying, one, he made peace with Eritrea, which was a devastating blow.
Second,
then they dismantled the EPRDF, which was another devastating blow.
Yes.
What else did he do besides this?
The third is when he dismantled the EPRDF, he dismantled also the TPLF hegemony in the House, in the Parliament, House of Commons, if you call it, or on the Parliament and the Federation House. That it is the TPLF had 39 members. These 39 members dominate almost 600 parliamentarians from all other regions. Once EPRDF was collapsed, that it is the majority of members of the parliament who are also oppressed, dominated by 39 and TPLF and control the parliament and the House of Federation, it collapsed. So the
TPLF merely became a minority.
A minority, which means the parliament is so liberated. So Prime Minister Abiy could negotiate and discuss with the parliament and work. The working situation of the parliament became totally different than the TPLF domination's time. TPLF domination time, you will be told before the meeting what to vote. Now it is the parliament was liberated, the House of Federation was liberated. Parliamentarians, they start speaking their mind. So these two important institutions of the country also liberated. And it came, Abiy could utilize them as a forum to meet and to negotiate and discuss to the Ethiopian people.
What else? The
third is that the hegemony on the media they had. The TPLF was dominating the state media, Fana and all these things. It collapsed. When it collapsed, the media to a certain extent, the national media to a certain extent, the pressure which was existed on them only to broadcast a monologue, TPLF's propaganda, that also have collapsed. And
so people like you can come up on Fana television with analysis, expose the crimes of the TPLF and what have you.
Yes, this. So,
what else, though? More important, there were two institutions that he liberated from the hegemony of
the other thing he have led, he made the media free. That's why you see all this YouTube, FM radios and this and this and this. In competition, the FM radios before, which was controlled by the agent of TPLF and so on, like Mimi Sabhatu and so on, it was the most voicey, the most dominant one, that it is the state where TPLF's hegemony is clearly seen on it and terrorized the Ethiopian population, dwindled. And other things came. And this also changed the nature of the debate. I'm not saying all the media, they are positive and looking for the future, but at least the hegemony of TPLF in propaganda collapsed and nobody was watching television of Tigray or radio of Tigray. And that way, they quarantine themselves into their own region. When you talk to people in Addis Ababa and so on, what they are doing in Tigray, they tell you, we don't know. Do you watch their television? No. Why have to watch? Anyway, it is rubbish. Do you listen to their radio, television? Nobody was. So in that way, that it is, they are making propaganda to themselves rather than. And their strategy of chaos, it broke. Their propaganda could not reach, only using secret money and so on, but they couldn't use the media as a propaganda means to agitate toward Ethiopian people.
As they had dominated from 1991 up to their collapse in 2018.
Yes. And they were hated extremely. So because of that, nobody was listening. So in another way.
But Professor Mohamed, more importantly, though, within 3 or 4 months, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed dared to do the unthinkable thing by firing the former security chief, Getachew Asafa. That was another devastating blow, wasn't it?
That is devastating. He understood that it is the pillar of the power of TPLF. It is the security. The security had about 100,000 members. The biggest budget of the country was allocated to the security, which is led by Getachew Asafa. And this security is based on repression and killing and this and this and this. But he understood that it is. Without the security, TPLF have no leverage on the organ of Ethiopian state. It is, in fact, it is a foreign organ, you could say, came from outside and tried to kill every department of the body or every organ to control through it.
Like an army of occupation, you would say.
Like an army of occupation. So when he chased away and dismissed him from his job, he ran away to Tigray. They also thought they cannot organize from Addis Ababa. First, they have to go back for their strategy, establish their own cell there. And that way, that it is also the security went out of their hand. And then also the banks,
how about the National Army, the most important institution that they had controlled? I believe in his parliamentary speech, the end of November, was it? He said,
yes.
Step by step, they restructured.
Yes. First of all, he gave the autopsy of the army, the nature of the army. He himself is member of that army. He knows that. The frustration existed among non-Tigrayan officers in that army. You could see it from his speech also when he gave that eloquent speech into the parliament. He says that in this way he had explained 50% of the fighting force, which was lower than the major down, were Tigrayans, he said. Can you imagine? You constitute 6% of the population, but 50% of the fighting force of the Ethiopian army are all recruited from Tigray.
This is at the lower, at the rank and file. But at the general level, at the higher level.
He continued. He said the second batch, he said that it is lieutenant colonel and colonels, it was 60%. Then he went to the generals level. He says 80% are Tigrayans. Those remaining generals, non-Tigrayans ones, they are generals by title, but probably they have no office. The most important department of the army is controlled by Tigrayan generals. So in fact, literally is a Tigrayan army within Ethiopia, with the logo of Ethiopia. That's what he explained. So imagine, this is a huge army controlled by them. But it is the steps Dr. Abiy did, he destabilized them. And gradually, slowly, knowing the most important nerve of the army, he started returning the army into a national army, reorganizing it differently. And that also weakened them. And probably one of the fear they had, probably they have attacked the army in the north, because probably he was also trying to reform that army, even though there were some Tigrayans there. So finally, they start withdrawing some of their officers to tell them, come to Tigray, and so to think that we will continue to arm the struggle and so on. So
during the 27 years of its misrule in Ethiopia, the TPLF's generals were, the army was a means of looting and plundering Ethiopia's wealth. Through illegal means, through contraband, through what have you. So the generals enriched themselves, the Tigrayan generals, didn't they?
Yes. What they have never seen is that...
In particular in the Somali region, for example. Explain how they enriched themselves in the Somali region that you know.
The Somali region is a military barracks region. So if you want to be rich, you have to beg to be appointed as an officer in Somali region. The Somalis will come and touch you and say, oh, you are a very thin young man. Your name is Hagos. Welcome to Jigjiga. Welcome to the Somali region. But don't worry, in 6 months you will be fat. And in 1 year, you will be rich. In 2 years, your family will be rich. So what they do is that they bring all the contrabands from Somalia and so on in the name of the military goods. So they bring them and dump them in Addis Ababa. A false competition that other Ethiopian businessmen and women who pays the legal taxes for the country, they cannot compete with this contrabandist who brought the goods cheaper and sell it there in Addis Ababa. In that way, they have dominated the different market of Addis Ababa. For example, a lot of Gurage business people, they became bankrupt because of such unlawful practice of the Tigrayan officers, connected to them the false business people of Tigray. In that,
so the legitimate merchants who pay their taxes could not compete with this contraband business. They would come and dump their...
because their cars is not controlled. The goods are coming with the lorries of the defense, and it is
without paying any taxes.
Paying any taxes to the state, and so and so on. So in that way, all these buildings you see in Addis Ababa now, they discovered 375 buildings, have no any even legal papers and owners, and so and so on. So it was a bonanza of theft inside Ethiopia. So the thinking itself became poorer. TPLF could not see. It reached to its saturating position, became a group of thieves and drunkards and so on, who developed extreme leisure life beyond their own population, which is suffering. There is no even water in Mekelle for the people, and so on and so on. So what happened is that
the drugs, illegal drugs, yes, prostitution, degeneracy, all kinds of moral bankruptcy that went against the culture of the people.
Indeed. So
houses of prostitution inside Addis Ababa.
Exactly. But with all this crime committed on the Ethiopian people and also on the people of Tigray, those forces who nominated TPLF as an anchor state believed that TPLF will rule Ethiopia for another 50, 60 years.
Mm-hmm. There was never any outcry in the Western media against this rampant corruption, killing, genocide, crimes against humanity. Jail Ogaden, for example, the worst kind of horrendous human rights abuses in the Somali region. Except every now and then, maybe Human Rights Watch or Amnesty International would issue a statement here and there, but beyond that, nothing.
Nothing, also in Gambella and so on. Now, to give you one example, the TPLF had bought a lot of friends, corrupt, useless individuals, and some of them, they call themselves journalists and professors, like Alex Dawal. Here is another Belgian professor of geography. Just to illustrate to you, this young man, he was a postman in a city called Liège, in the French-speaking area. By that moment, I was in the embassy as a diplomat. And he was member of our party, the Labour Party of Belgium. He contacted one of my comrades, and he said he wanted to see me at the embassy. He came to me and we talked. I thought it is, he started his, again, to study in the university at late age. He's a clever man, but honest worker, I thought. And he says that he's now finishing his third year and he wants to write his dissertation on desertification. Can you help me, Comrade Mohamed? I said, why not? I will help you, and you will also help us. And I arranged for him to do desertification in Tigray. I brought him into contact with the rest of Tigray Relief Association. Of course, they took him to Tigray. He did a very good his master's on desertification, and he was an excellent work. and he got scholarship to the Catholic University here to do his PhD. But already he entered into their network in the web, they put him. And after that, he became one of the big microphone of TPLF. And now when TPLF was dismissed and run away, and when TPLF started the war and is defeated, he organized of 3,000 professors, of Belgian professors, to sign a protest against the war. And when you ask them, what did you know about Tigray? They say, we don't know, but we know him. I mean, you see also these Bozambo Belgian professors. They are also another villagers. He mobilized a lot of things.
This was a quote-unquote war that the TPLF itself initiated by attacking the garrison of the National Army.
Indeed.
And literally massacring hundreds of army in the dead of the night while they were asleep. And yet these Western apologists of the TPLF are claiming that war was unleashed on Tigray by Abiy and by Eritrea and what have you. It's outrageous.
Yes, and it is shameful. It is 62 university professors who have signed. Some of them also American professors, different, maybe 1,200 or 800 American professors signed. It shows you that the knowledge...
And also from Australia and other parts.
Yes. The knowledge of these individuals about our region is very poor. It is very shameful for intellectuals and professors who doesn't understand the region to involve themselves in such a shameless business. It is shameful even for the universities. In this situation, I think it is the government of Ethiopia have to gather, specifically the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and so on, have to accuse and go to the chancellors of these universities to tell that it is our relationship with you. In fact, we were very surprised to the ethno-fascist organization, which have created a misery to the people of the Horn of Africa, and specific to the people of Ethiopia, you people support. Of course, we will work on it. And it is the government of Ethiopia is aware of it, I'm sure of that. And when I go to Ethiopia, I will also tell them there must be a committee that must be organized to explain, first of all, to the states themselves. How is possible 3,000 Belgians can sign such kind of document?
It is outrageous. I mean, it is. Let me give an analogy for our viewers. It is as if, let's say, in 1939 Germany, the Nazis, the Gestapo, are committing horrendous human rights violations against the Jews, the communists, the the Romans, the Gypsies, and what have you. And yet they are claiming that they were attacked, and that certain sectors then in the West would be writing in defense of them to say that, no, Germany is attacked. Germany has, the Nazis have a legitimate right, to defend themselves and what have you. I mean, I'm trying to put a similar analogy for our viewers. The aggressors, the main proponent, those who committed outrageous human rights violations, atrocities in Ethiopia and the region, the TPLF ethno-fascists, all of a sudden have become more or less like angels and are being defended, and the crimes that they have committed on the rest of Ethiopia and Eritrea and Somalia are being whitewashed. This is outrageous.
It is outrageous and shameful. For that, I say that it is a lot of innocent people who doesn't know the area, but because of their Eurocentrism, one of their colleague, because he have a relationship, whether it is a marriage relationship, whether it is a finance relationship and so on, or because of they consider him, he's one of their experts on desertification and this, He tells them story and they cannot verify. How can you consider this? They can be a very good pedagogue and how they educate their children and how they manage their families. I have a very big doubt about it. But the most important is that this war also unified the people of all of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
We, the people of all of Africa, with the new vision, what we have to do more, that it is this kind of element that they cannot penetrate in our area anymore. We have to educate, organize our youth. Explain this as an example. The so-called Western university professors, this is the outcome of them. This is their quality of them. A lot of them are shameful. They want to impress our youth and to create a false impression. What I wanted to use the statement of the late revolutionary historian Eric Hobsbawm. In one of his publication, he projecting power. In his projecting power, he explains that it is why all these Western countries and Europeans build a lot of monuments in their cities. He says, all these monuments, all these horses, somebody sitting on it, and so on, it is a projection of power.
Mm-hmm.
When you read, he says that in 1780, majority of European people are very short, and the Portuguese even shorter than them. They are illiterate people. Their knowledge of the world, it is in comparison with somebody who is living in Mogadishu at that moment. The one who lives in Mogadishu, his knowledge about the world much better than the one who is living in a filthy, dirty city or not even a city, a village in Paris. In his book of Age of Revolution, to impress in the future with the rising imperialist power, in order to impress the colonized elite, when they come to their cities and they see these big monuments,
yeah,
you get surprised. And that way, we have to use the condition now. TPLF's demise and the destruction of TPLF by the Ethiopian armed forces and so on, and its supporters, it is an autopsy of the truth. It will give us a very good curriculum to educate our youth to the new whole of Africa's policy we envisage. From now onward, I don't think that there will be an enemy which can be dangerous for us in the region. At least TPLF was gone. Second point here we have to concentrate. There are other connected TPLF type, but it is connected to TPLF thinking in a way because of their personal aggrandizement and wealth. They wanted to exploit their population. They don't care for their population. For example, like Djibouti, it is just a family business state of one man and one woman, his wife. He have rented the whole country as
You're talking about the president of that tiny port city state,
yes.
Ismail Omar Gelle.
Yes. He had been attached to TPLF for a very long time. And now he became alone. And of course, he knew that it is the new wind which was blowing in the region will isolate him finally, and it will bring his demise. Therefore, his strategy was to create destabilization in Somalia, because he knows that Somalia, if it is in the process of stability, it will be one of the anchor states of the new Horn of Africa. And
Somalia now, you could say, is like the mythical phoenix bird is rising from the ashes and once again claiming its proper place in the region, stabilizing and becoming strong, unified, and this to to forces like Gelle would be threatening you. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it's threatening, and it is his days are shorted. Now he wants to go to election for the fifth time. He's the fifth richest man in Africa through looting, and nobody is speaking. He rented the country. It became Djibouti a garage of the external forces, bases of external forces outside of the region. So
explain how close were his ties, President Gelle's ties with the kleptocrats, TPLF kleptocrats in Ethiopia.
Very close, in all sense of it. Very close. They trade together, his wife and the ex-Meles Zenawi's wife, and so on. They even trade in drugs, cat, and so on. They have joint security option. After that, even he is the one who initiated in the name of IGAD 2009 to put sanction on Eritrea, on the United Nations, and so on and so on. He dominates the IGAD now, which is now IGAD is used also against President Farmajo and destabilization of Somalia in alliance with another individual, who is Kenya.
We will come to IGAD in our next session, but IGAD is the regional organization called Intergovernmental Authority on Development, in which I believe 7 or 8 countries are members. Eritrea, Ethiopia, Djibouti, Somalia, Sudan, South Sudan, Kenya, and Uganda.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Although Eritrea now is no longer an active member as it used to be.
Yes, it's a dead organization. It's a paper tiger. It is a Trojan horse for the external forces to use it and destabilize the region. We'll
talk about that in our next session, perhaps.
Very good.
But on Djibouti, you have said that it's trying now to instigate this conflict between Kenya and Somalia.
He was not investigating. He is in tandem with the Kenyan specific Uhuru's programmer. In Kenya,
what is in it for Kenya, though? What does Kenya benefit from conflicts in Somalia?
Very good. First of all, the majority of the population of Kenya and the intelligentsia and even the business people and so on are against this. The relationship between the two populations, the Kenyan and the Somali-speaking people of Somalia and the Kenyans, it is a very cordial, I used to travel a lot.
There is, not to forget, there are millions of Kenyan citizens of ethnic Somali origin, right? In the northern part. We have brought here as our guest in an interview I did with the Honorable Farah Muallim, who is an astute politician and former Deputy Speaker of the House in the Kenyan Parliament. So there are millions of Kenyan citizens of Somali origin, right?
That is true. That is Kenyan Somalis. And there is also a lot of Somalis from Somalia who are doing business, contributing a big deal of the Kenyan economy. But the main purpose is like this. Kenya also is a victim, but victim in a sense that the Kenyan people are, and the Kenyan people in general, they are victim of this conspiracy of Uhuru in tandem with the Norwegian gas company. The story starts there. There is a huge gas reserve was discovered in the Somali territory, specific in the Indian Ocean.
Offshore, yeah?
Offshore. And Norway wants to grab that. And behind all this conflict, it is Norway behind him, and it pays Uhuru. Uhuru means independent. This is the son.
Yeah, in Swahili, yes.
Swahili. He is the son of a former president of Kenya.
The first president, Jomo Kenyatta. Yes.
Jomo Kenyatta. A very spoiled young, came from a very wealthy family. He was a student in the United States, and he was deported because of his drug and alcohol abuse. Secondly, this man, he's always drunk. as a I don't think he's ruling or behaving as a president in Kenya. And they knew that. The man is always under influence. He likes a lot of money, and they just used him. They pay him from the back. So this is one factor which is playing there. So he wants to grab, claiming land, this area belongs to Kenya. Finally, he went to court and he lost. And then he developed a strategy of chaos to control with one warlord of the Middle Ages or the 12th century, Abdi Modobe is called, using
Jubaland, is it?
Jubaland, and so on, stabilized. But now the situation in Somalia, the consciousness of the Somali people have risen extremely. The patriotism of the Somali people is coming back in a very strong sense and so on. He is fighting against the wind. And finally, I'm sure after this election and President Farmajo wins and comes, the situation in Somalia will be dramatically different. So Kenya is playing, and particularly, anyway, there will be an election also in Kenya within a year and something. And I'm sure that if Mr. Uhuru, he will be also defeated. And the other forces who are coming, like Farah Ma'alin and so on, they don't want the destabilization of Somalia, at the same time the destabilization of Kenya. It is by the byproduct of it, also it affects Kenya and so on. The Kenyan population is not interested in this conflict. But when I discussed with Kenyans, whether it's a taxi driver, a student, and so on, they are willing, they look for the new Horn of Africa vision. They like that. There must be a peaceful in the region. Let's work together, and so on and so on. They got surprised about the TPLF, what they did in Ethiopia. And in Ethiopia, in Kenya, big number of the population, particularly the educated class, is against ethnicism and ethno-fascist ideology. So in that sense, in the future, we will make an interview with the Horn of Africa, with Kenyan intelligentsia. We will bring them here, that it is our brothers and sisters from Ethiopia, Kenya, Djibouti, and Eritrea, and Sudan, and so on. They can meet each other and discuss. So it is very interesting time. I call it the Horn of Africa is passing in a very interesting time. But we have to guard it. We have to explain to our population very clearly. We have to discuss with all the youth and the intelligentsia. In Ethiopia, because of the curtain that TPLF puts, which is brought Ethiopia into the Middle Ages, and now they are breaking and they are seeing the end of the tunnel. When I go back also, we will make a lot of debate. And then we try to bring and link the users of the region. They can discuss the women associations and so on with the vision of the new Horn of Africa.
Okay, we are coming to the end of the show, but I would like you to touch upon briefly the situation of the, say, manufactured conflict in the Sudanese-Ethiopian border. Why is it on the uprise now? And the conflict entrepreneurs in the West who are, as we mentioned earlier, in an outcry against this, against Eritrea, trying to scapegoat Eritrea of involvement in the Tigray situation, and so on and so forth. So, if you can summarize this, and then we will wrap up this session and continue the discussion next week.
First of all, the first group who became jobless, the so-called experts of the region, like Alex Dawar and the others from the imperialist country, whether it is small countries or bigger countries. Because for them, this project of conflict, it is a sort of a market for them. A market in the sense they will be respected in their home country because they will be called to discuss, because they are expert about Sudan, expert about Eritrea, expert about this. They are not even expert about themselves, let alone to be expert about us. So these elements have lost the market with the demise of the ethno-fascist TPLF state. So they were very much angry. Their market is closed. They used to sell rubbish to their own state and then also to the region as an expert. And they live at the process of conflict, getting as an expert, coming as consultants, and so on. That era is over.
So they feel threatened by this new Horn of Africa on the rise.
Indeed, they feel threatened.
They do not want peace, is what you're saying?
They don't want peace. They are conflict entrepreneurs. They don't want peace. They live in a peaceful area, but they don't want peace, and they don't love the population of the region. They just use them. They are not different from the drug mafia. They are addicted with daily stipend that they are getting from the so-called development cooperation, NGOs, and this and this.
The foundations and what are
charlatans roaming from hotels to hotel, but they are not very serious people. And they, of course, they consider themselves they are expert of Darfur, they are expert of this, as if they want to tell me they are expert of my mother, expert of my father, expert of my sister, expert. So in that way, they lived for the last 60 years. The change, it blocked it. Second, they were watching Dr. Abiy. They realized that they couldn't understand why Dr. Abiy is walking the opposite than the other puppets before they used to walk. The first walk, which is making a relationship with Eritrea and a peaceful relationship he have created. And systematically he dismantled their puppet and their ethno-fascist party within Ethiopia, and now it has demised.
TPLF.
The TPLF. So in Sudan, we have the balance of forces with the popular revolt. The Bashir regime, the Islamist Bashir regime, have collapsed in the same way as TPLF collapsed.
Yeah, about 2 years ago, I would say.
2 years ago, yes. So these two agents, even though these Islamists stole 90 billion, looted huge wells, the same like TPLF, but double than TPLF, they have looted this big, rich country, Sudan, and they disorganized it and they left. So the popular revolt, that revolt, it reached 50% and stopped. Finally, part of the army and the civilian, they are a lot coming from parties, coming from NGOs, coming from individuals, and so on, a sort with different ideas. It is a lot of, there is no clear line, clean compass.
Yeah, we've talked at length about this in our two segments before of the Sudan and South Sudan.
Indeed. So the militarist wing, I think, and my understanding is, they want to come back to power, to take over completely the power and remove the civilians. And they needed a pretext. And that pretext is, of course, these Ethiopian farmers who have penetrated inside Sudan, and they used to farm there for the last 60 years. We never heard about this. There was no conflict before. Suddenly this conflict erupted. This is a process of destabilization. But the behavior of Prime Minister Abiy, he said, let's keep cool. We should not be in a hurry. The relationship between the people of Sudan and is a brotherly relationship. So he calmed down because they expect that there will be a reaction from the Ethiopian side, that they can also put a war music and so on. And this have subsided. And I'm sure Ethiopia also and Dr. Abiy and all others have learned from this new provocation, a provocation not based by the people of Sudan, but it is this militarist and a segment of the militaries, an Islamist element who wanted to create another crisis because their interest also is endangered in the long future. And I don't think that situation will succeed. And with this new diplomacy, Dr. Abiy built, and the diplomacy of Eritrea. Eritrea played a fundamental by going to Khartoum, discussing with them, explaining, being a bridge between all the states in the region. It has calmed it. And this also frustrated the forces who are from outside, who says that they want conflict. They want in Africa always conflict. Africa has 60% of the world's resources. Second, with the new development of technology, we are discovering a lot of wealth in that country, in that area. They don't want the whole of Africa people that we can live in peace and can we work together and build our region, improve the life condition of our population. They don't want that. This parasite, they wanted to exploit, and they just export war everywhere in order to disorganize and loot the resources. What we have to do now, the new Horn of Africa, it is on the ground. There is no a real force who can roll back this historical development. We, conscious element of the region, we have to work hard and redouble our work, mobilize our youth, mobilize our women, mobilize the workers, the worker, the woman, the peasantry, the youth, all have an interest to have peace in the region, and this peace will bring a dividends, will change the life of the region. And we have a very big region of 250 million market. We should open our eye, be patient, and we have to differentiate the contradictions. We have a major contradiction with far enemy, and we have also democratic contradiction among us. And those democratic contradictions must be solved democratically through discussion and so on. So the only solution that the region, the concept of ethnicism, regionalism can disappear is the concept with the framework and with the umbrella of the new Horn of Africa project.
Thank you very much for this discussion, as always, Professor Mohamed Hassan. We have to make this a weekly session of conversations, and we will continue this discussion next week, inshallah. Until next time, for myself and my friend, Professor Mohamed Hassan, I'm Elias Amare. Salam.